Dear listeners, like there is a strange comfort in knowing you want to change even when you don't. Yeah. And we carry this intention, right? Like a talisman, right? Like proof, which is kind of, we're trying that proof we care. But somewhere in between wanting and doing, something breaks down. Not because we lack discipline or the willpower, but because the system itself resists. So the question comes is, what if that resistance was not a personal failing? What if it is followed a pattern that you could actually see, right? So dear listeners, I am Abhik and this is Mind Meets Machine, a place where we slow down enough to notice what we usually rush past. And today we are asking what makes change so hard, even when every part of us says we are ready, right? And joining me today is a very lovely guest. Please welcome Billy Seol. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm excited to talk about change.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Billy, for joining us today. And dear listeners, like before we get into the discussion, I'd quickly love to introduce you with Billy. So Billy is an ex-Apple and Disney software engineer who left the world of code to become a Buddhist life coach and then did something unexpected. Like he wrote mathematical formulas for why people cannot change, even when they want to change, right? So I do not want to take much of your time. Let's get started. So Billy, I mean, like most people, they think that change is about the willpower, about trying harder and harder and wanting it more. But you have worked with the partners and the systems your whole life. So what do you think is the biggest misconception here that people have about why they stay stuck?
Yeah, I think, in general, I do understand why people view change or action in that kind of a lens, right? Because in general, we generally experience convenience when concepts are sufficiently chunked down, right? When we look at individual experiences of eating breakfast, for example, right?
Okay. Yeah.
We all
Yeah.
have different reasons for eating breakfast. We all have different preferences. We all have different,
Hmm.
methods of eating
Hmm.
breakfast. But that to talk about all of that in an individual lens versus saying, I had breakfast this morning. It does a lot of chunking down, makes the ideas a little bit convenient for the head. So I'm not arguing that it is not about willpower. No, so parts of it is about willpower, right? But what I'm really trying to propose with my formula system is that willpower is just one way change can happen. And the way I see change, the way I see action is that it's an interplay between some primary variables that have a different effect on the action, right? So
Yeah.
just if you're a sound engineer, you know that you have a lot of knobs you can turn, and each knob
Yeah.
does something different to impact the final output of the sound. So just like that, my formula system is wanting to offer you the kind of possibility that what if action isn't unilaterally about the one singular factor of willpower and whether you have it or not? What if it's less about that? And what if it's actually an interplay of multiple variables working at the same time? So that, I think, there's only one way to change. I think that is the biggest misconception.
That's interesting as well. Yeah. So, like when someone comes to you convinced that they just need to push harder. So, what do you help them see instead of hard working?
Yeah. So the thing is, again, if hardworking works for you, great.
Yeah.
I'm not going to
Yeah.
unilaterally say that's a bad thing you're doing. So
Hmm.
no, if you're a good hard worker and you are able to do it, that's fine. But the thing is, why though? Why do we need to work hard? And
Yeah.
this is a very individual question, right?
Hmm.
So like, for example, it might be very late for you, Avik, but then you're recording here. So some might say, wow, you're working that late. You're working really hard,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, our parents, when they were raising us, we woke up
Hmm.
at very inconvenient times crying for food, but our parents wake up without complaint and then, feed us, right?
Correct.
So some might say, wow, you're parenting really hard. Okay. But why do we do things that hard in the first place? What's the point of working hard?
Hmm.
If I'm to generalize all the individual reasons why a person might work hard, it comes down to this. We work hard because what we are working towards benefits us, right? Yeah. So I'm not going to work hard to destroy my life. I'm not
Exactly.
going to work hard to do things that don't benefit me. okay, that's sort of the North Star that we're looking for, right?
Mm.
If I'm working hard, I better have a good reason to work hard. And that good reason is it's gonna benefit me. Okay. Now, so I just sit with that question. Okay. You're burnt out and, you don't want to go to work and you're starting to lose hair from stress in the side of your head and you're having constant stomach ulcers. Okay. And you want to work harder. So
Mm.
is this benefiting you?
No, definitely
So
not. I'm losing.
yeah, the thing is, but it's an individual cases. Some people might say, yeah, it's still getting me what I want. And again, who am I to say no to that? I'm like, okay, great. I just wanted to do a gut check of whether this is working out for you, whether this is actually beneficial for you, right? But 90% of the time, when we're working so hard for something, we become a byproduct. We become a cog in the, grand machine. We become a replaceable part. And in that case, it doesn't really benefit us. It actually benefits the system. It benefits the
Mm.
expectations, right?
Yep. Yep.
But the thing is, when we're so into it, it's kind of hard to see it from that zoomed out lens. So this is the conversation that I have with them. Okay, so why do you need to work hard? And we need to come to the conclusion that I work hard for me to benefit me. Then we assess, okay, then what you're doing right now, is it benefiting you? If not, how can we adapt it to a way that does benefit you?
Interesting. That is really interesting. I mean, we often, even I also feel like, fine, like our previous generations, like the boomers or the baby boomers, basically. Yeah. So they used to say, like, if you work hard, you will gain everything. But yes, I also agree with you. Like, it is again depends on person to person, but how they think. But what I also feel is like, why to work harder when I can work smarter, right? So if I'm gaining in 2 minutes, why I have to wait for 30 minutes, right? So yeah, I mean, again, it's a person to person vary, but yes, true. I agree.
Yeah, but again, it just generalizes into do things to benefit myself. And
Exactly.
if I'm to generalize that one more time, it's so that I can be happy, right? Like
Exactly.
why do we want more money? So that we can be happier. Why do we want relationships? So that we can be
Mm,
happier. Why do we want to
exactly.
start a family? So that we can be
Mm,
happy, right?
yeah. Yeah.
So if you're working that hard, is it getting you closer to that happiness? And if you are working towards happiness, doesn't it make sense to happily work towards happiness?
Mm,
Like we have this invisible drawing line of I'm gonna suffer and I'm gonna grind so hard, and then when I reach the finish line, I'm finally gonna be happy. But like, no, if I'm walking down a happy path, isn't it natural that I'm going to go down to the happy conclusion? But this requires a little bit more introspection around what happiness means to you, right? And so these are the questions and these are the conversations that people generally are not having with themselves. And that's where I come into help.
amazing. And if you have to say, like, if I say about the daily life, right? Like, for someone who is listening right now, who feels like they have tried everything, so then where does this show up in their everyday life? Like, any small signals or anything?
Yeah. So they tried everything, usually indicates they tried everything that they were told to, that they were taught. But this generally means that themself becomes the last place that they actually look for, right?
Mm,
But I will say I understand that perspective because we generally have a poor idea of our potential and our abilities. Why? Well, the thing is, every one of us were born not knowing how to do anything, right? So
exactly.
we benefited from our parents, we benefited from school, we benefited from society. People, adults, other influential educators, they teach us things, right? But what they don't teach us, and also they don't have the responsibility to teach us this, but what they don't teach us is now that you know these things, you are capable now. Nobody explicitly tells you you reach the point where you're sufficiently educated and you're sufficiently grown up, and now you can do anything in the world. Nobody ever explicitly tells you that because it's not really anybody's role, right? Therefore, our belief system about ourselves doesn't really get updated. So we may be like 30 or 40 years old, but we still feel like we need to learn more. We need to learn more from teachers, external sources, and we don't rely on ourselves to teach us how to live our life.
Yep.
because we generally have negative perception about I waste so much time. I never finish anything. Oh, I'm just a slacker. You see, and that self-image, I mean, if you were hiring a tutor, would you hire a tutor who describes themselves as a slacker? If you were hiring a professional, would you hire a professional that, doesn't like themselves? So why would you look within yourself in this kind of a thinking model? You wouldn't. So when people say I tried everything, it means I tried everything that other people have suggested and that worked for other people. And the thing to do now is to look within. But again, like this is such an abstract term because nobody explicitly tells you how to look within, right? Like if you're going to listen to somebody else's courses or like curriculums, they explicitly tell you do this, do that. But when it comes to listening to yourself, when it comes to communicating to yourself, you're the only one who can teach yourself how to listen to yourself, right? I can give you clues. I can give you like things that you can try, but it's very difficult for you to learn from yourself when you don't really know how to listen to yourself in the first place. So in a coaching relationship, that's where I try my best to be an attentive listener. And I learn a lot of things about my client's life on behalf of them. And then I keep reflecting it back to them so that they can see that, oh, wait, like I'm feeling those things, right? But I said those things, but I wasn't listening to myself. So Billy listened to it and then Billy is reflecting it back to me. But in conclusion, it's me who thought those things. Oh, this is what it's like to listen to myself. And when you tried everything, it's in conclusion, very likely that you haven't worked with yourself yet.
Interesting. So, if you have to give one advice to the listeners today, what will you give?
Yeah. So it's a very, 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 very simple question. How are you feeling right now? So the thing is, people are generally going to say, give an answer that's like one word. I feel okay. I feel fine. Sure. Great. That's okay. I'm not saying don't feel fine. I'm not looking for a specific answer, but we want to go a little bit deeper. Okay. So now that you said that you're fine, now that you expressed that, now that you acknowledge that you're feeling fine, how are you feeling right now? And then, well, I told you I feel fine. Okay, great. Not a problem. But that has expressed itself, right? So what else do you feel? Well, you're asking me 3 times. And you know what? Now I'm a little bit frustrated. Great. Tell me a little bit more about that frustration. Well, I don't like it when people ask me the same thing multiple times. It means that they're not listening to me or, I don't
Correct.
feel respected.
Mm.
Okay, great. And when you're disrespected, how do you feel? Like, I feel really angry because, there were these times in the past when XYZ happened and it reminds me of this too. So you see, it's a very simple question, but it allows you to start forming connections with yourself where you might have lost connection with these like memory nodes, these emotions. But unfortunately, when you're living your life day to day, these unconsciously unconnected nodes are actually what drives your behavior most of the time. So you don't specifically remember that you are annoyed when you're asked the same thing multiple times because of this
Mm.
particular experience and how that meant for your life. You don't explicitly remember that part. But what happens when somebody asks you the same thing over and over again? That pattern is what triggers, right? So what happens is your life is run on an autopilot that's written by you, but ironically, you don't understand that autopilot. So it doesn't have to be much. It doesn't have to be like a ton of journaling, like every day, like it's homework. But it's a very meditative question. When you're at the traffic stop, how am I feeling right now? When you just hang up a call, how am I
Mm.
feeling right now? When you close your laptop, how am I feeling right now? When you're done sipping your cup of water and then you put the cup on the table, how am I feeling right now? It's a very simple question, but it starts developing the synaptic connections that are required for you to have a deeper connection with yourself.
Amazing. Amazing. So, dear listeners, what I'll say is before we get into it, Billy, like if someone wants to connect with you, how they can connect.
Yeah, I all the topics that I discussed to learn more about my life and my work and all the great, vast majority of the expansive topics I want to discuss and you want to experience, you can go to billyseol.com, BILLYSEOL.com, and then you'll be able to access everything.
Amazing. So, dear listeners, what I'll do is I'll put all the links, details, everything into the show notes for easy reference. And I'll just say, like, change is not the failure of will. It is a conversation with a system that's been running longer than you have been paying attention to. So, Billy, thank you so much for sharing your perspectives and also about the examples and the knowledge that you have shared. So, dear listeners, like Thank you so much for being here. And if this discussion has resonated with you, I hope it gives you the permission to look at your own patterns with a little more curiosity and a little less judgment. And that's what we do, right? And with this hope, definitely, I'd say, like, this is your host, Avik, and this is Mind Meets Machine. Until next time, take care of your mind and see you next time. Thank you so much.